Since fighting broke out in Syria in 2011, millions of migrants and refugees have struggled through perilous journeys to escape their war-ridden nations, desiring a home in tranquil countries. This mass migration has resulted in the displacement of over 60 million refugees and asylum seekers, overflowing European countries and forcing some to close their borders. These migrations can be traced back to 2011, the beginning of the civil war in Syria. In March of 2011, Syrian citizens began to organize anti-government demonstrations and protests. The intent was the forced resignation of President Bashar al-Assad, but these protests quickly escalated from peaceful to violent after a brutal government crackdown. The Syrian army fired upon demonstrations across the country, killing hundreds. This caused Syrian to arm opposition groups to fight back, resulting in the creation of the Free Syrian Army. Thousands of civilians took up arms, hoping to join the resistance. A member of UK government's Syria team said, "The fact is, many Syrians will not be safe in Syria while Assad remains in power." This armed conflict resulted in the migration of over 2 million Syrian citizens, marking the beginning of an ongoing refugee crisis in Europe. But Syria was not the only country facing difficult times. Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Nigeria, and Pakistan all have a significant number of migrants leaving their borders. Despite the fact that the Syrian civil war started in 2011, the refugee crisis in Europe did not officially begin until 2015. Since then, over 5 million refugees left their home in search of peaceful land. This journey was the end of many lives. The 5-year span resulted in the deaths of over 10,000 people. In 2015, 50% of all refugees in Europe came from Syria. Conflicts and disputes in many other Middle Eastern countries revealed the true amount of displaced citizens, more than 70 million. This record-breaking number is due to two main factors: growing population and a changing society. The conflict in Syria was a result of a changing society, the controversial election of President Bashar al-Assad, while many North African countries are suffering from overpopulation. These refugees are migrating into many European countries, the main ones being Turkey, Greece, Spain, and Italy. In 2018, Spain received over 60,000 migrants, while both Greece and Italy received around 30,000. These massive numbers are how this event earned the title European Refugee Crisis. Early American westward expansion is similar to this refugee crisis because they are both brought on by citizens desiring better homes for themselves and their families. In America, people wanted to escape the bustling cities and expand west, as they had heard of more fertile and prosperous land. In the refugee crisis, migrants wanted to flee their war-ridden nations in search of peaceful homes for their families. In both cases, many of them reached obstacles. While expanding west, Americans reached mountain ranges, forcing them to take detours and dangerous trails through the mountains. European migrants received opposition from governments and militias in their home countries, and from large bodies of water scattered across Europe. Many refugees died trying to cross the eastern tip of the Mediterranean Sea in hope of reaching Turkey. Both culture and perspective were major motives for migration in Europe. Different cultures set many groups against each other, causing conflict and civil wars. Differing perspectives and beliefs also played a role in setting communities against each other. An example of this is the civil war in Afghanistan. Separate religions, such as extremist Islam and Muslim, influenced war. In Afghanistan, the Taliban had been a major part of the civil conflict, mainly because they have a unique perspectives and beliefs. From learning about this extensive refugee crisis, I have come to realize that the advantages of a growing population depend on the country and the government. Wealthy and educated countries are flourishing with a growing population. It is causing their economy to grow, along with a growing society. But many countries are uneducated. Their expanding population is causing their country to overflow. But as of now, the majority of the world is managing the growing population. Countries are prepared for more citizens, but they are unprepared for the arrival of thousands of foreign immigrants. This is what causes refugee crises, such as the one in Europe.